everyone. Thank you for joining me. Well, that is Salute over for another year. Thank you for everyone who stopped by to say hello. Really nice seeing so many people, loads of people, really busy. Really mental show this year. So yeah, sorry if I didn't have a chance to properly talk to anyone. That tends to be the case at these shows. If you'd like to come and have a proper chat with me, then maybe come along to our open air games day on the 28th of June, the Woods in the Woods. All the details are up on our website, oakbound.co.uk/games day. And I will have plenty of time to be talking with you then. It'd be great to see people at that. And hopefully the weather will be like this, nice and sunny and warm and hot, and we can play some games. We did sell out of Thunder Under Mount Silence at Salute. It was indicated that we might, and we did. Actually, we had a couple of copies lingering until about 3:30 in the afternoon after a mad flurry in the morning. Got rid of most of them, but they did all go by the end of the day. So I'm in the process of working out what to do with the next print run, whether we go for a straight print run, do the same thing as I did last time, or whether, as is my hope, I can get a board game company to come on board and make a bigger, wider reaching print run that I can't store here or distribute here. But I think I've got enough people on the waiting list, and I've got some retailers on board, so hopefully I'll have a good case to go to somebody who can handle the import and the storage of that number of games. To say let's partner up on this one. If you don't have a copy and you would like a copy, you can email info@oakbound.co.uk. If you put Thunder as the subject title, that just helps me to find it in the inbox, and to remember that you want a copy, and I'll put your name on the waiting list, which I have got. I was going to show you a copy. It's here somewhere. Here it is. So yeah, here's the waiting list. It's a few pages long. There's quite a few names on here already. Obviously, I'm not sharing anyone's contact details. There's a fair few pages there, so there's a few people waiting. So we'll definitely have another print run. More info to come in a couple of months. In the meantime, I have been doing some stuff with the Game Crafter in the States. You may remember, you probably won't, I barely remember, a good 10 years ago, probably more than that, 11 years plus now, Oakbound brought out a board game called Tripods. It was my first sort of foray into the world of game design. It was a board game based on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, and I did my print run of that through the Game Crafter in the States, which is like a print on demand, I guess a kind of vanity board game project really, but it's quite good for prototyping bits and pieces. They have stock sizes that you upload files into, and so I took the files from Thunder Under Mount Silence and I adjusted them to fit into their template format. You can see the box is a bit smaller. It's obviously a bit lighter because it doesn't have any of the metal figures in it. It's got a big bag of dice still, and the card tiles, they're a slightly different size and shape to the UK print run, but they're still decent chunky cardstock. And then I've got these little chit counters here that have got the doors and the various tokens and the miniatures that are not miniatures, but they are now tokens in here as well. So this is, to all intents and purposes, exactly the same game. It has a bit of a reduced rule book, so it doesn't have the kind of campaign that the UK edition has, but it has the list of objectives and all the dungeon building stuff in it. So it functions the same. If you can get somebody to send you a PDF copy, I might be able to help you out with that, of the UK rulebook, then you'll be able to play it with this, although some of your board tiles will be slightly different size and shape. So if you are desperate to get your hands on a copy and you can't wait a couple of months, this is available from the Game Crafter now. I will put a link in the description below to how to get your hands on one of these. And of course, if you're in the States, getting your hands on one of these is going to be much easier and cheaper than getting your hands on one of the UK ones, because if they're packed with lead minis, as most people found out at Salute, it's a hefty box. It's 1.4 kilos, so it will cost a lot to ship. Whereas these are being printed in the States, so they will be much cheaper to ship to you. So there is that option available. What I thought we would do today, though, now seeing that a few people, I'm going to say 49 people, because my initial print run was 50. I kept a copy for myself, obviously, for my records, my personal Oakbrand archive, and we've sold out of all the others, so that means 49 people have got copies of the game. So I thought that it'd be a good idea to go through perhaps a little, do a little tactics video. If you played through the Advent Calendar, Mount Silence at Night, you'll know that the gnomes have it tough. This is not a walkover. This is not one of those Hero Quest moments where you step into a room and there's 2 goblins, and a turn later you've got goblins and you move on. No, goblins are a little bit harder in Mount Silence. They're not necessarily very capable, as in the woods. They're fairly useless in and of themselves, but they are. They're difficult buggers to get rid of. They don't fall over easily. So I thought it'd be worth going through just a few tactics to help you out with your adventures under Mount Silence. So the first thing that I want to remind everyone exists is the balance. Okay, this is really crucial. So the gnomes are all about balance. Gnomic philosophy is all based around the balance of these 3 elements: heat, light, and sound, as you've known from previous videos and from reading the Woods rulebook, of course. And the gnome cavern guards can play with this balance. That's one of the mechanisms within the game that wasn't in the Advent Calendar version. So they can tweak the balance to give themselves a little bit of extra boost. So remember to use that. It's very easy to leave it on the side and forget about it. Things you might especially want to do are the green, so that's the noise token, which lets you up your gnome's agility by 1 point. So one gnome, you can raise their agility by 1 point, and you may think that doesn't sound like very much, but actually that means that gnome can then hop over other gnomes because their agility is that 1 point higher. They can move 1 space beyond. It's also really good for getting a flagging model up further and closer, and it means that you can run away in the event of being overwhelmed suddenly, or opening a door and finding, crikey, there's loads of goblins in there, we don't want to go in there. Shut the door, leg it fast, so it'll help you to get away. The flip side of that is that one gnome has to drop their stamina by 2 for a turn, which obviously means that they can do less on their turn. But I find that that's generally the one that's easiest to do, because usually, until you get really reduced in numbers, usually you've got a gnome that's further back, sort of lurking around, or it can't really get anywhere to do anything useful. So using that as your model to take that 2 points stamina loss is actually quite a good use for that figure. So that's one that you can flip in and out quite easily. The red, so the heat token. Oh, by the way, the extra movement is noise because you're not moving stealthily, right? You're just going for it. You're charging around effectively, so it's banging and crashing and making more noise. The heat is to do with, I guess it's associated with sort of anger and violence and that kind of thing. So you turn up the heat to be better at fighting. But remember with that one that your reroll of all the attack dice, or any of the attack dice, any or all, so you can pick 1 dice if you want to try and reroll that, or you can reroll the whole lot. That doesn't just apply to your attack dice as gnomes, okay? If your goblin opponents have a particularly successful lucky roll against you, there's nothing to stop you flipping that balance to reroll their dice. And you can do any of the balance stuff you can do at any point during anyone's turn, okay? So the game turn or your turn. So you just flip it in, and it takes immediate effect when you flip it. So yeah, you can do it at any time, and you can re-roll your enemy's attack dice as well. Rolling fewer attack dice is a bit more of a disadvantage than taking stamina hits when there's a gnome standing around not doing very much. But if you're able to pick a weaker opponent, then that's a good opportunity. And I'll talk a little bit later about another opportunity that's really good to be flipping that out again. And then the last one, the light element, is about restoring endurance. So if your gnomes are hard pressed, then you can flip that into to restore some of the endurance to some of your gnome characters. Which is a good thing to do if you're sort of resting between seeing goblins. However, to flip that back, you do need to roll fewer fewer defense dice in a defense. So that means that when you're resting, you can't just flip flop that one in and out. You can flip it in once, restore some endurance, but then you've got to wait until you've had your next encounter and taken another defense dice hit before you can do it again. So it's not. That's one to maybe use in an emergency rather than to use willy-nilly. So don't forget to use the balance. The balance is really important. Gang up. I don't have to tell Hero Quest people that, right? Get your creatures to come to you. So don't always be the one charging into the battle unless you can get you can pin a goblin in the right spot. Arrange your gnomes and lure the goblins to come towards you so that you can get as many hits on them as possible. As I've said, the goblins do not go down easily. With an endurance of 8, it takes you more than 2 3-point hits to take them down. So even if you roll 6s with 2 of your models, they're not going down unless those models have got maces, and we'll talk about equipment a bit later on. So 2 good hits with a mace or 3 good hits with any other weapon. So they're not going down in a single round of combat, regardless how well you do, and that's if you roll the hits in the first place. So you will need to gang up. You will need to rotate them, rotate your models hitting them, which is where adding that point of agility can come in handy, because sometimes in the close confines it's difficult for everyone to be able to hit and step away, hit and step away. Ideally what you want to be doing is moving into combat with the goblin if they haven't been lured towards you, and then hitting them with as much as you can hit them with, leaving enough stamina to step out of the way again so that the next person can come in. And that can work fine with the first 2 or 3 models. Then getting a 4th or a 5th model in if the goblin is still standing is difficult at that point without using that green balance element to give yourself the extra stamina to get out of the way. It goes without saying, Hero Quest players, that you don't open doors while there are still models on the board. This is not an absolute. Okay, there will be circumstances where it's in your benefit, in your interest, to open a door while there are still goblins to fight on the board as an escape route, or as another optional route through. Bear in mind that when rooms are first revealed, they'll have shapes in the gloom on them. They won't necessarily have goblins standing up ready to fight, so it's less of an issue unless you roll goblins really close to the door, which tends to happen. So you may not get completely swamped, and you may find that there's an escape route. So don't be totally afraid to open new doors, reveal new board sections. Be aware that goblins can also open doors and reveal board sections, and you want to try and stop them from doing that if possible, because that won't give you another escape route, another way out, another way through the maze, because doors that are opened by goblins don't lead to further doors. They lead to barracks or guard houses or something that are dead ends, but may still have more goblins in, which will be revealed pretty much immediately and come out and fight you. So try and stop goblins from opening doors if you can. Close doors after you. not always. If it's your way of escape, obviously keep some doors open. You don't want to be wasting stamina on the way back, burning it opening doors. But it can deter some goblins completely. So sentries will go past a closed door, and even with a marauder, it will slow them down. Not only because they have to spend a point of stamina opening the door, but if they have enough stamina to move beyond the door, but it's closed, they have to stop where they are, use stamina to open the door, and then use fresh stamina to move beyond it. So it can actually end up degrading them 2 points of stamina instead of 1, which is worth doing. You also obviously don't have to go down crowded routes. If you open a door and you see a massive room filled with loads of stallo, because of the way that the dungeon generation mechanics work, you are just as likely in most cases to find the objective, unless you've rolled a double reinforced door in that room that you're going into, and you know that that's where the objective room is. You're just as likely to find the objective room down a different route. So provided that you can get far enough away from that room full of nastiness that you've opened in order to get your gnomes safely down the board and along a different route, then there's no harm in going, yeah, we're not going that way, lads, and closing the door and moving swiftly and stealthily towards the next destination. Let's talk a little bit about equipment. So you have, out of the box, you have access to 3 types of equipment for your gnomes: maces, axes, and swords. Maces, they do an additional point of damage whenever you do anything to an opponent in combat. So even if you do something like shunting them or flooring them or roaring and gaining stamina, that still does a point of damage. Whatever you choose as your attack dice, it does a point of damage. So it's a guaranteed hit, which is really nice. It's also the only way to fell a goblin reliably in 2 strokes if you manage to roll 6s. So they are a good thing to have up front. I tend to put gnomes at the front of the party with maces, as long as they can get out of the way again, and they will start taking damage, and then you can still use them to hit, but you'll want to let them hit and then get them to the back of the party, which is where that using that green element can come in handy, and make sure that your party isn't all stood next to each other. Make sure that they've got spaces in between so that that gnome at the front can hop backwards, especially if you're in narrow corridors, right? If you're in 1 square wide corridors, there's nowhere for that lead gnome to go, so they are going to take all of the damage. 1 square corridors are pretty nasty things to meet enemies in. Ideally, you want to be fighting in a bigger, wider space where you can get models around. So if you are going to fight in narrow corridors, make sure your gnomes are spread out and you've got access to that green element so that you can jump your gnomes backwards and forwards and have a model at the back to take the stamina hit to restore the balance afterwards. So I tend to put maces to the fore. Axes let you apply dice in an arc, so they have a big swing and they go around and they hit more squares. I'm going to be totally honest, the situations where there are goblins in all of those squares that you can hit, they're few and far between. Axes, I think, are probably the least useful of the equipment, but if you get them in the right spot, they're really, really, really effective. So yeah, be clever in your axe placement, but you want to be able to hit as many goblins as possible, and you can, to an extent, if you've got an axe gnome out in front, you can kind of lure a cluster of goblins around them. Just make sure that you've got other gnomes to move in around that cluster then to back them up, otherwise they'll be taking all of the hits from all of those goblins. Swords are a precision instrument, so swords let you turn a dice to 1 result before you roll the rest of your attack or defense dice. That's important. Swords are really good for defending as well. So if you know that your gnome is going to be killed if the goblin attack dice roll a 6, use your sword, set one of those defense dice to a 6, and then at least you've got a chance that a single 6 rolled will be negated and your gnome will last for another turn. In the attack, it's very common to set the red attack dice to a 6. But there are other things that you might want to do or might want to consider as well. For example, if you know that you're going to want to get your gnome out of there the moment that they've had their attack. So let's say, for example, you're attacking a fully stamina'd goblin. The goblin is going to have loads of defense dice, so it's got a pretty good chance of negating whatever you roll. But what you're wanting to do is use up its stamina, so that the next gnome that steps in is fighting a goblin that's already exhausted. It's back down to rolling 1 defense dice, and then you've got a really good chance of hitting it. So you're going to want to get that initial gnome in there, use up its stamina, and get it out as quickly as possible. So one of the ways of doing that is to set your sword dice to the raw results, so that you're going to gain stamina. Then you can roll the rest of your dice and hope that the defense dice don't turn up too many of those results, negate your raw, and then you've used up stamina. You can use that raw to then move out of the way and let other goblins through. Otherwise, let other gnomes through. Otherwise, you just have to save enough stamina to get out of the way afterwards. The other instance when the sword is really useful is if you've managed to floor your opponent. So if you have rolled a 4, you've knocked your opponent prone, they don't get to roll any defense dice. So whatever you choose as your sword result, that's going to take effect immediately. So not only does that mean it's a guaranteed combat result, but it also means that you only have to give up the 1 point of stamina that you need to make the attack. Doesn't matter how many dice you're rolling, but you don't need to roll any extra dice because there's not going to be a defense. You know that one is going to go straight through. So it's only going to that attack is only going to cost you 1 stamina, and you're guaranteed to get the result that you want. So it can be a really easy hit, and that's a really good time to reset the red dice if you've used a reroll on the red element. And you need to roll 2 fewer attack dice using a sword on a prone opponent, because you're setting 1 attack dice. You should have 3 remaining, the 3 for the strength of the gnome. You can easily say, oh well, I'm not rolling 2 of those, and it won't change the outcome in the slightest. So that's a good way to be resetting that element of the balance. Specialist weapon crews. So you've got a choice of 3. Sometimes I don't take a special weapon crew. Sometimes I find that 6 independent gnomes works better than 4 independent gnomes and a special weapon crew. But they're generally a good thing to have on side. As you might be able to tell from the way that I was talking about axes earlier, I do tend to replace the 2 axe guys with a weapon team. I might, under some circumstances, take an axe and a sword. I will always take 2 maces. I think maces are well worth it, and they're probably the most useful of the weapons in the game. So your specialist weapon teams do different things. You've got your gloom spreaders who make everything dark. So they are very good. If you've revealed a room which is a big room full of lots of nasty enemies and you've got to go through it, maybe there are no other doors, so you have no option, you've got to go through that route, or maybe you know that the objective room lies beyond, get your gloom spreaders in there, because they can make it dark and nobody can target your gnomes as they make their way through the room. So that's a good place to use it. It's also good to have them covering your retreat, because the goblins obviously won't be able to see you disappearing off, so it will affect how they then move around the board. If you do that, though, you're likely to lose that weapon team because they won't be able to move fast enough to catch up with the rest of your people, and eventually they're going to have to stop smoking out that tile in order to move away. Or you just leave them there for the rest of the game, I suppose, but then you're 2 gnomes down. The noise dampers with their sacks, very good again for blocking off difficult routes. So if you have unveiled a lot of goblins down a particular route, and you decide that you don't want to go down there after all, especially if it's down a narrow passage, then you can stack those sacks to stop the goblins, or at least slow the goblins down trying to get through. The other thing that they can be really good for is blocking off archways so that you don't reveal a new tile before you're ready to. So the way that archways work is that if you stand next to one, because it's an open door essentially, you're revealing the next board tile. So they can be quite dangerous. They can mean that you're revealing more tiles before you're ready to, and putting more enemies on the board. So if you've blocked that space with a sack, or you've blocked that doorway with a sack before you reveal the tile, then it essentially counts as a locked door. That does mean obviously that you can't move through that space. So sometimes it's going to be unavoidable. But yeah, it can at least prevent an AI'd goblin stepping in front of that space and revealing the board tile before you want them to. The fuel dampers, the backer team, long narrow corridors. That's where they're useful, because the goblins will have no option but to stand in the way of the blast, and you won't kill goblins with them because they're only doing a point or two of damage per turn with their sprays and their limited sprays, so it's going to take a long time to kill a goblin, but it can knock them far enough away from you to reorganize your gnomes. And the really important thing that it will do is it will knock them prone. So if you do have a sword guy that you can get in, then you can potentially finish off a goblin or two before they can reach you. However, special weapon teams are quite squishy. They're squishier than two gnomes put together would be. They're difficult to maneuver. If you have them up the front, they're not very good in combat because they can't make regular attacks. So you can find that you're just blocking the way for your other gnomes to get through. They take up two spaces, so even with a raised point of agility, you can't get through there. If you have them at the back, then it's difficult to get them up fast enough to have an effect. So they can be quite a tricky thing to maneuver in the close confines, which is why I find that sometimes actually just taking 6 regular independent gnomes is a more useful thing to do. So I hope that gives you some clues as to how to get on under the mountain. Do let us know how you get on. It's always good to find out how people's games are going. We've got a Facebook group. You can use the regular Woods Facebook group. It's the Woods Worldwide Players Circle. We'd love to hear on there how your adventures are going. And we now have a Discord as well. I don't think I've mentioned that on YouTube, but we have a Discord channel, and we've got a dedicated channel for Thunder Under Mount Silence on that. So I will put a link to the Discord down below. Feel free to join up and tell us your adventures, and tell us any adventures that you're creating, because that's one of the things that I really wanted this game to do. Like Hero Quest can be expanded and developed, and you can come up with new scenarios and things. I wanted this to be the same thing. So you can come up with new rules, you can come up with new objectives, new scenarios. And I really want people to be doing that. So I would love to hear that you've been doing that, and to read your adventures. Good. I see. For some reason, I seem to be saying that a lot. Sorry. If you saw me at Salute, I was saying "good" all the time, and I don't know where that's come from. It's one of these weird habits that I just picked up. I'll try and quash it anyway. I shall see you next week when I shall be talking about all the projects that I seem to have on the go at the moment. I seem to have accumulated a load of hobby projects and a few work-bound ones. So I shall be talking about those next week. Take care, and I shall see you then.